France is back at it again, provoking and undermining Burkina Faso. And this time round, they have given international coverage, or what we call media coverage, to an Al-Qaeda leader. So according to the latest news that have been making headlines across the world, is that Burkina Faso has suspended France24 over interview with jihadi. And what happened is that this France24, as most of you know, is the French state-owned media. So it's like the BBC of France, right? Or the DW of France. So they gave an interview to the leader of Al-Qaeda. And this is what the story went, is that Burkina Faso's ruling junta on Monday, that is yesterday, suspended all broadcasts by France24 media in the country after it aired an interview with the head of Al-Qaeda in the North Africa. By opening its antennas to the head of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, France24 not only acts as a communication agency for these terrorists, but also offers legitimacy to terrorist actions and hate speech. That is what the junta's spokesperson or spokesman said, referring to the interview on March 6 with the head of the Al-Qaeda in West Africa by the name Abu Abeja Yusuf Al-Anan. And I'm going to show you the interview in a short while. Is that they gave an interview to the leader of this Al-Qaeda movement. So in the interview, you can see that they basically dressed him nice, did a little bit of makeup to present him to the world as a very innocent and holy person. This is undermining the government of Mali, the government of Burkina Faso, and even the government of Guinea-Conakry, because that's where these people are active. And to those of you who may not know the origin of this Al-Qaeda in West Africa, is that they came from Algeria back in 1988 when Algeria had a civil war. The rebels from the south were Muslims. There were this, of course, almost everyone in Algeria is a Muslim, but this was a branch of Islam called the Sarafi. So they were practicing Sarafism, and they were trying to fight the government. They lost, so they moved south of the country, that is Algeria. And during the 2011 revolution in Libya, Gaddafi enlisted them to fight for him as mercenaries. Of course, they lost. They also now get kicked out of Libya, and they left with all these weapons from Libya and went to settle in northern Mali. And that's when France sent in 9,000 troops to try to deal with them. But instead of dealing with them, they started, trading with them and kind of doing some covert operation with them in the Sahara region. And the soldiers from Mali found out and told the civilian government in Mali, that is the elected government in Mali. So they refused, and that's when we had this coup d'etat from the soldiers. So in Mali, we had coup d'etat led by the likes of Kano Goita. And this, because the jihadis have spread to Burkina Faso, the same thing happened. The soldiers were complaining, but the civilian government was very corrupt, and they also, working for the French government normally. So the soldiers also decided to have a coup, and the first coup happened last year, I think, and the coup leader started softening his stance because France was, putting, pressure on him, because he went to Russia to get help, and Russia came and basically assisted him with the weapons. They gave them about 10, combat helicopters. They gave him a lot of weapons for free, but France didn't like that. So France tried to undermine the Burkina Faso junta, or the military rulers, and the leader of that military junta started getting soft. He started listening to France. Then the junior soldiers, junior officers, removed him through another coup. So it was a coup inside a coup, and the current leader is a very young military leader who removed his boss from that position. But now today, France has been kicked out from Mali and kicked out from Burkina Faso. And France is trying to find ways to undermine these junior military rulers in Burkina Faso. So that's why they are now funding the Al-Qaeda jihadists in the north to weaken the soldiers. And Russia is coming in to supply the soldiers with the weapons. They have even sent in about 200 Wagner Group military trainers and advisors. And they have also sent about 26 combat helicopters so far, from last year. So France keeps trying to find ways to undermine these people, to undermine the people of Burkina Faso. And that's why now they have used their media to try to give voice to the jihadists. So just imagine an external media, a foreign media in your own country, broadcasting in French or a language your people understand, is giving voice to your enemy. It's like going to a country like now in the case of Afghanistan, when the US troops were there, giving voice to the Taliban. So it's almost the same thing. Or going to Ukraine and giving the Russian soldiers airtime, giving them coverage, or the leader of the Russian soldiers, in this case Putin, giving him international media coverage. So that is unacceptable. That is undermining the sovereignty of Burkina Faso, and that is what France keeps doing, despite France having a tough time at this time. They have a lot of protests in France. The president of France, Macron, is about to be removed from power through these strikes and protests, but they still have the audacity to come to Africa and undermine a poor West African country, a country part of the what we call the Francophone, those former French colonies that still pay colonial tax to France and still use the French currency, or a version of the French currency in West Africa. The money they use there in those French colonies, former French colonies, is printed in France by the French government, and they are told to use it. They also pay tax in the same currency. But now here we have young soldiers trying to change that, and France is trying to undermine them by supporting terrorists, jihadis, giving airtime to jihadis.